follows Lena Marquez, a woman on the run who finds unexpected refuge on a quiet farmland in the heart of a man with wounds of his own. But when danger returns, can love and community stand against the past? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun cast long shadows across Copper Hill Farm as Samuel Hayes loaded hay bales onto his pickup truck. At 30 years old, Sam was known throughout the small town of Riverdale as a man of few words but generous actions. His strong arms, tanned from years of outdoor work, moved with practiced ease as he prepared for another day of honest labor. "Sam, you got a minute?" called Martha Wilson from the edge of the property. The 65-year-old woman had run the general store in town for as long as anyone could remember. Sam wiped the sweat from his brow and walked over to Martha. "Morning, something wrong at the store?" Martha's expression was a mix of concern and hope. "Not exactly. There's a young woman who came into town last night. She's in pretty rough shape, Sam, sleeping in her car, clothes all torn up. Says she needs work." Sam frowned. "The Johnson farm might be hiring for the season. I sent her to you," Martha said firmly. "You know how to see the good in people." Before Sam could protest, Martha spotted the approaching figure walking slowly up the dirt road toward the farm. "That's her now. Her name's Lena Marquez. Just talk to her, Sam, that's all I'm asking." Sam sighed, knowing Martha well enough to recognize when arguing was pointless. He watched as the young woman approached. She couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her jeans were dusty, and he noticed a fresh gash on her knee. But what struck him most were her eyes, hollow, wary, constantly darting around as if searching for threats. "I'll leave you two to talk," Martha said, patting Sam's arm before heading back to town. Lena stopped, a safe distance away from Sam. "The lady at the store said you might have work," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm a hard worker. I won't be a burden." Sam studied her for a moment. There was something in the way she stood, shoulders hunched, keeping her distance, never making direct eye contact, that told him more than words could. He'd seen that look before, in abandoned dogs that expected to be kicked. "You know anything about farming?" he asked. "Some. I grew up helping my grandfather with his vegetables. I can learn whatever I don't know." Sam nodded. "I could use help with the harvest coming up. Pay isn't much, but it's fair. There's an old barn with a loft that's clean enough to stay in if you need a place." Relief washed over Lena's face, though she tried to hide it. "When can I start?" "Now's as good a time as any," Sam replied. "I'll show you around." As they walked the property, Sam pointed out the fields of corn, the vegetable garden, the chicken coop, and the small orchard of apple trees. All the while, Lena kept a careful distance between them, flinching when he moved too quickly. "Barns, over there," he said, pointing to the large red structure. "The loft's got a bed and a small bathroom with a shower. Nothing fancy, but it's private." "Thank you," Lena said, looking at the ground. "You don't know me, you don't have to do this." Sam shrugged. "Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. You can start by helping me feed the chickens." The days it fell into a quiet rhythm. Lena worked from sunrise to sunset, never complaining, always the first to volunteer for the hardest tasks. She ate her meals alone in the barn loft, despite Sam's casual invitations to join him in the farmhouse. Whenever customers came to buy fresh produce from the farm stand, she would disappear until they left. 2 weeks passed this way. Sam respected her need for space, but he couldn't help noticing the way her hands trembled when trucks backfired on the nearby road, or how she seemed to make herself smaller whenever he approached. One evening, as Sam was repairing the tractor in the yard, he spotted Lena sitting on a hay bale, watching the sunset. For the first time since her arrival, her face looked peaceful. He decided to try again. "Coffee?" he asked, holding out a thermos. Lena hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks." Sam poured the hot liquid into 2 cups and handed one to her, making sure their fingers didn't touch. He sat down on another hay bale, leaving plenty of space between them. "You're good with the animals," he commented, "especially that stubborn goat. He doesn't let just anyone milk him." A ghost of a smile crossed Lena's face. "Animals are easier than people. They don't lie to you." Sam nodded, letting the silence stretch comfortably between them. "Martha asks about you whenever I go to the store." "She was kind to me," Lena said, softly. "Not many people would help a stranger who looked like I did." "People around here look out for each other," Sam replied. "It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone." Lena's body tensed immediately. "Do they ask questions about me?" "Some. I told them you're a hard worker who keeps to herself. That's all they need to know." Relief softened her features. "Thank you." The next morning brought heavy rain, turning the farm's dirt paths into mud. Sam and Lena worked side by side, moving feed bags to higher ground to keep them dry. The rain pounded against the barn roof as thunder rolled in the distance. "We should get the chickens into the coop before it gets worse," Sam called over the noise of the storm. Lena nodded and grabbed a bag of feed to lure the free-ranging chickens back to safety. As she stepped out of the barn, her foot slipped in the mud. She fell hard, the feed bag splitting open around her. Her shirt tore further along an existing rip. the sleeve riding up to reveal a large, yellowish-purple bruise on her upper arm. Sam was at her side in an instant. "Are you okay?" Lena scrambled to pull his sleeve down, but it was too late. She'd seen the look in his eyes, he'd noticed the bruise. She turned away, trying to get to her feet on the slippery ground. Sam reached out a hand to help her up, moving slowly so as not to startle her when she refused to look at him. He gently placed a finger under her chin and lifted her face to meet his gaze. His eyes were kind but serious. "Whoever hurt you doesn't deserve to see you shine." Lena froze, her eyes widening. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Not about shining. Not about being worthy of it. She felt something crack inside her chest, like ice breaking on a river in spring. She pulled away, unable to process the emotions flooding through her. "I need to change," she mumbled, gesturing to her mud-covered clothes. "Go ahead," Sam said, stepping back to give her space. "I'll take care of the chickens." In the privacy of the barn loft, Lena sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her with such kindness, such respect. It terrified her. For the next few days, she worked harder than ever, keeping busy from dawn until well after dusk. She avoided being alone with Sam, afraid of what she might feel, afraid of trusting the warmth in his eyes. But Sam had a way of being present without pushing. He began leaving small gestures that she couldn't ignore: a thermos of fresh coffee outside her door in the mornings, a basket of apples from the orchard, a radio that appeared one day so she could listen to music while she worked. One afternoon, Lena returned to the barn to find Sam fixing the creaky door that had been bothering her for days. "You don't have to do that," she said, hovering at a distance. "Door needed fixing," he replied simply, hammering in the last nail. "How's your knee healing up?" "It's better," she said, touching the spot where the gash had been. "Almost gone now." Sam nodded, gathering his tools. Good as he passed by her to leave, Lena surprised herself by speaking again. "My ex-boyfriend did it." Sam stopped, turning slowly to face her. He didn't ask what she meant. They both knew. "Not the knee," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "The bruises. He said I was clumsy, that I brought it on myself. Said no one else would put up with me." Sam's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. He was wrong. "I ran away 3 weeks ago," Lena admitted. "Took my car and just drove until I ran out of gas money. Ended up here." "You're safe now," Sam said firmly. "No one will hurt you here." That night, for the first time since arriving at Copper Hill, Lena slept without waking up to every sound. In the morning, she found fresh sunflower seedlings planted in small pots outside her door, with a note that simply read, "For your window." Over breakfast in the farmhouse kitchen, the first time she'd accepted Sam's invitation to eat together, Lena watched him scramble eggs with careful concentration. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "The coffee, fixing the door, the flowers." Sam placed a plate in front of her before sitting down with his own. "Everyone deserves kindness, Lena, especially people who haven't gotten much of it." "I don't know how to trust it," she admitted. "Kindness always came with strings attached before." "No strings here," Sam assured her. "Just neighbors helping neighbors. Is that what we are? Neighbors?" Sam's eyes met hers, steady and clear. "We're whatever. You need us to be friends, if you want to help Martha with the heavy lifting." He leaned against the tree, keeping a respectful distance. "Market crowds can be overwhelming." She realized he was giving her an easy excuse for her behavior. "Yes, I'm not used to so many people anymore." Eli took a drink of his water, his eyes scanning the market. "Me neither. I prefer the quiet of the farm." They stood in silence for a moment, and strangely, it wasn't uncomfortable. There was something calming about Eli's presence, perhaps, because he didn't expect conversation or explanations. "Martha says you're good with the herbs," he said finally. "The lavender looks healthier than it has in years." "Lavender needs gentle handling," Isabel said. "It's delicate but stronger than it looks." Eli glanced at her, and she had the distinct impression he wasn't just talking about plants anymore. Most things are. A commotion at the market entrance drew their attention. A police car had pulled up, and 2 officers were posting flyers. On the community board, Isabel instinctively stepped back, partially hiding behind the tree. "What's happening?" "Probably updates about that missing person case," Eli said. "There's been a woman missing from the next county for a few weeks now." Isabel's heart pounded. She'd changed her appearance, her name, but what if it wasn't enough? "Should get back to Martha," she said quickly, avoiding Eli's eyes. "Thank you for the water." She hurried back to the store, feeling Eli's gaze follow her. She'd been careless, letting her guard down. She couldn't afford to do that again the following days. Isabel worked harder than ever, trying to exhaust herself to the point where she wouldn't dream. But the nightmares came anyway. Memories of shouting, of pain, of a hospital room, of a choice that broke her heart. She'd wake gasping, sheets twisted around her, and would slip outside to sit in the garden. The scent of lavender and the open sky above helped calm her racing thoughts. One night, nearly a month after her arrival, Isabel sat among the lavender plants, a crumpled letter in her hand. It had arrived that morning, forwarded from her old address to the post office in town. Her sister was the only one who knew where she was. and the letter contained news that reopened all her wounds. He was looking for her. He'd been to their parents' house, demanding to know where she'd gone, claiming he had rights. Tears streamed down her face as she read the words again. By moonlight. Would she ever be free? Would she ever stop looking over her shoulder? So absorbed in her pain, she didn't hear the footsteps until they were close. Isabel quickly wiped her eyes and stood, ready to retreat to her room. But it was Eli, fixing a section of fence near the garden. He looked up as she moved, and even in the dim light she could tell he'd noticed her tears. Isabel stiffened, preparing to walk away to hide as she always did. But before she could move, Eli spoke, his voice gentle in a way she hadn't heard before. Trust me, my heart has been hurt too. 5 simple words, but something in the way he said them with such quiet understanding broke through the walls she'd built. A sob escaped her lips before she could stop it. Eli didn't move closer. He didn't offer empty comfort or demand explanations. He simply continued working on the fence, giving her the space to cry if she needed to, or to leave if she wanted. Isabel sank back down among the lavender, letting the tears come freely for the first time in months, and Eli worked quietly nearby, his presence somehow making her feel less alone with her pain. When her tears finally subsided, Isabel took a deep, shaky breath. I'm sorry. Don't be, Eli said, securing the last section of fence. Sometimes we need to let it out. I don't usually ... I try not to ... I know. He sat down on the ground, leaving several feet between them. After Sarah died, I used to come out here at night too. Something about the open sky helps Sarah. The name slipped out before Isabel could stop herself. Eli was quiet for so long that Isabel thought he wouldn't answer. Finally he spoke, his voice low. My wife, she died of cancer 2 years ago. Understanding dawned. The argument with Rachel, the solitude, the sadness that sometimes shadowed his eyes. I'm sorry, Isabel whispered. Eli nodded, accepting her sympathy. Everyone said time would make it easier, that I'd move on. But some days it feels just as raw as it did then. Isabel looked down at the crumpled letter in her hand. I thought running away would fix everything, that if I just got far enough, I could forget. Does it work that way? His question held no judgment, only genuine curiosity. No, she admitted. The distance helps, but the memories come with you. They sat in companionable silence for a while. 2 wounded souls under the vast night sky. It wasn't a solution to either of their problems, but for Isabel, it was the first time since arriving that she didn't feel like she was just pretending to be okay. Finally, Eli stood up. It's getting late. We both have early mornings. Isabel nodded, rising as well. Thank you for ... She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate exactly what she was thanking him for, but Eli seemed to understand. Anytime. He hesitated, then added, whatever you're carrying, Isabel ... You don't have to carry it alone. Not here. As he walked away, Isabel watched his retreating figure, the crumpled letter still in her hand. For the first time in months, she felt something stir inside her that wasn't fear or regret. It was small, fragile, barely recognizable, but it felt a little like hope. The weeks that followed brought subtle changes to Pine Hollow Farm. The summer heat intensified, turning July into a month of early mornings and late evenings with afternoons spent seeking whatever shade could be found. Isabel's garden flourished under her care. The herbs grew lush and fragrant, and the flowers bloomed in vibrant bursts of color. But it wasn't just the plants that were transforming. Since that night among the lavender, something had shifted between Isabel and Eli. They didn't speak of their shared moment of vulnerability, but a quiet understanding had taken root. Their daily interactions, once brief and impersonal, now lingered. A nod of greeting became a small smile, then a few words, then actual conversations. One morning, Isabel was harvesting mint when Eli approached, carrying a wooden crate. Martha wants to expand the herb section, he said, setting the crate down. She says, your rosemary sells out every week at the market. Isabel wiped her brow with the back of her hand. People around here appreciate fresh herbs. They appreciate how you present them. Eli knelt beside her, examining the healthy mint plants. You have a gift. The compliment warmed her. My mother had an herb garden when I was growing up. Nothing this big, but she taught me everything she knew. It was the second personal detail she'd shared, and Isabel was surprised at how easily it came out. Something about Eli made talking feel safe. Is she still gardening? He asked. Isabel's hand stilled. No. My parents died in a car accident 3 years ago. Eli's eyes met hers, full of genuine sympathy. I'm sorry. It was quick. That's what the police told us, me and my sister Maria. Isabel returned to cutting mint, needing the distraction of movement. Maria's all the family I have now. Is she the one who writes to you? Isabel looked up surprised. How did you know? About the letters. Small post office. Postmaster Jenkins mentioned you get regular mail from New Mexico. Eli must have seen her alarm because he quickly added, people notice things in small towns. Isabel, doesn't mean they're prying. But Isabel felt exposed. If the postmaster knew about her letters, what else did people know? What else were they noticing? I should finish this before the sun gets too high, she said, withdrawing behind the wall she'd carefully built. Eli seemed to sense her retreat. He stood up. I'll bring more pots for the new herbs this afternoon. Isabel nodded without looking at him, focusing intently on her harvesting. When he was gone, she sat back on her heels and took a deep breath. She couldn't afford to get comfortable, couldn't afford to forget why she was here, hiding in this remote corner of the country. The letter from Maria was safely hidden under her mattress, along with the others. Each one contained the same warning: he's still looking. Stay away. Stay safe. That evening, Isabel helped Martha prepare dinner. The older woman had become something of a mentor, teaching Isabel not just about cooking but about life on the farm. Eli seems less broody lately, Martha commented as she chopped carrots. I noticed him actually smiling yesterday, nearly fell over from shock. Isabel concentrated on stirring the stew. He's probably just pleased with how the farm is doing. Martha gave her a knowing look. Or maybe he's finally letting a little light back into his life. He's been in the dark since Sarah died. He told me about his wife, Isabel admitted. It must have been devastating. It was. Martha's knife stilled. They were childhood sweethearts, married right out of high school. When she got sick, Eli was with her every step of the way. For months he barely left her side. She resumed chopping. After the funeral, he shut down, threw himself into the farm work, stopped talking to friends, declined invitations. Rachel's been trying to bring him back to the land of the living, but they seem close, Isabel observed, trying to sound casual. Martha snorted. Rachel's had her eye on Eli since high school, even when he was with Sarah. She's a good realtor, but subtlety isn't her strong suit, are they? Isabel let the question hang. No, and not for Rachel's lack of trying. Martha tipped the carrots into the pot. Eli's not interested, but Rachel's persistent, always bringing him casseroles, stopping by with urgent questions about property lines. She shook her head. But lately he seems different, more present. She gave Isabel a meaningful look. Since you arrived, actually. Isabel felt her cheeks warm. I doubt I have anything to do with that. Don't be so sure, dear. Sometimes a fresh perspective is exactly what's needed to shake someone out of their routine. Before Isabel could respond, the back door opened and Eli walked in, bringing with him the earthy scent of the fields. Perfect timing, Martha said. Dinner's almost ready. Isabel said another place. Eli's joining us tonight. This was unusual. Though Eli lived in the main house, he typically took his meals in his office or workshop, claiming he had work to finish. Isabel added another bowl to the table, aware of Eli washing up at the sink behind her. The domesticity of the scene struck her. Suddenly, the cozy kitchen, Martha's gentle bossing, Eli's quiet presence. For a moment, it felt like a real home, like a place she belonged. The thought terrified her. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Martha carried most of the conversation, telling stories about the farm's history and the colorful characters in town. Eli occasionally added details or corrections, and Isabel found herself laughing at Martha's dramatic retelling of the town's annual pie contest scandal. Judge Peterson had blueberry filling all over his shirt for days, Martha concluded, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. That's not the worst part, Eli added with a rare smile. His wife had just bought him that shirt for their anniversary. Isabel laughed, and the sound seemed to please Eli. His eyes lingered on her face, and she realized it might be the first time he'd heard her truly laugh. The moment was interrupted by a knock at the front door. Who could that be at this hour? Martha wondered, rising from her chair. She returned moments later with Rachel, who was dressed in a stylish summer dress that seemed out of place in the farmhouse kitchen. Sorry to interrupt dinner, Rachel said, though her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. But I needed to catch you before tomorrow. Eli, the Parker property finally hit the market, and I thought you'd want first chance at it. It borders your Southfield. She held up a folder of papers. That could have waited until morning, Rachel, Eli said, his relaxed demeanor fading. The Millers from Boston are also interested. I'm showing them tomorrow afternoon. Rachel's eyes swept over the domestic scene, lingering on Isabel before returning to Eli. I thought your farm's expansion was a priority. Isabel stood up. I should check on the watering system before it gets dark, she said, giving Martha and Eli an apologetic smile. Thank you for dinner, Isabel, Eli began, but Rachel was already taking the seat Isabel had vacated. This won't take long, Rachel assured him, spreading papers on the table. Martha, this stew smells amazing. Isabel slipped out the back door, breathing in the evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She walked toward her garden, needing the comfort of her plants. She was checking the irrigation lines when she heard footsteps. Looking up, she expected to see Eli, but it was Rachel approaching. The garden looks nice, Rachel said, her tone friendly but her eyes calculating. Eli seems impressed with your work. Thank you, Isabel replied cautiously. Rachel crossed her arms. You know, it's interesting. You show up out of nowhere, with no references except a phone call, and suddenly you're having family dinners with the daughter. Isabel straightened up. Martha hired me to do a job. That's all I'm doing, is it? Rachel stepped closer. Because from where I stand it looks like you're getting awfully comfortable, and I'm curious about why someone with your skills would choose to bury herself on a farm in the middle of nowhere. Isabel's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. I like the quiet. Rachel's smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, just so you know, people in this town look out for the Dawsons. Eli's been through enough. He doesn't need complications from someone who's clearly running from something. Before Isabel could respond, the back door opened and Eli called out, "Rachel, your phone's ringing in your purse." Rachel's demeanor instantly changed, her smile becoming genuine, just admiring the garden. She gave Isabel one last pointed look before heading back to the house. Isabel remained in the garden long after Rachel had left, her hands trembling slightly as she worked. Rachel was right about one thing: Isabel was getting too comfortable, and that was dangerous, for her and for anyone who got close to her. The next day, Isabel kept her distance, focusing entirely on her work. When Eli came by with the promised herb pots, she thanked him politely but didn't engage in conversation. "Is everything okay?" he asked, setting down the pots. "Fine," she said, not meeting his eyes, "just busy." "Rachel can come on strong," he said correctly, guessing the source of her withdrawal. "But she means well." Isabel doubted that but didn't say so. "It's not about Rachel. I just have a lot to do today." Eli stood there for a moment longer, as if waiting for more, but Isabel kept her attention on the plants. Finally, he walked away. That evening, Isabel skipped dinner, claiming a headache. She stayed in her room, writing a reply to Maria's latest letter. She didn't mention Eli or the conflicting feelings he stirred in her. Instead, she asked about Maria's children and her job as a teacher. What Isabel really wanted to know: if she was still being looked for, if it was safe yet remained unwritten. She knew the answer anyway. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Isabel, it was Martha. I brought you some tea for your headache." Isabel opened the door. Martha handed her a steaming mug that smelled of chamomile and mint. "Thank you," Isabel said, genuinely touched by the gesture. Martha studied her face. "Headaches often come from things we're not saying." She patted Isabel's arm. "Whatever, Rachel. I said to you yesterday, don't let it chase you back into your shell. You've been good for this place. Good for Eli, too." Isabel sipped the tea to avoid responding. "He's going into town tomorrow to pick up some parts for the tractor," Martha continued. "Said he could use help selecting new garden tools while he's there. I told him you'd go." "Martha, I don't think it wasn't a request, dear." Martha's tone was kind but firm. "You've barely left the farm since you arrived. A change of scenery will do you good." After Martha left, Isabel sat on her bed, anxiety churning in her stomach. Going into town meant more exposure, more chances of being recognized or remembered. But refusing would raise questions she couldn't answer. She would go, but she would be careful, very careful. The drive into town the next morning was quiet. Eli didn't push for conversation, and Isabel was grateful. She wore a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses, telling herself it was for sun protection rather than disguise. The hardware store was their first stop, while Eli spoke with the owner about tractor parts. Isabel browsed the garden section, selecting pruning shears and a new trowel. "Find everything you need?" Eli asked, joining her after his transaction was complete. "Yes, these look good." She handed him the tools. "They're a bit basic," he commented, examining the pruning shears. "Let me show you something better." He led her to another display and picked up a higher quality pair. "These will last longer and give you cleaner cuts, better for the plants." Their hands brushed as he handed them to her, and Isabel felt that same inexplicable warmth she'd experienced before. She quickly pulled back. "These are fine," she said, returning to the cheaper pair. Eli frowned slightly but didn't argue. He paid for the items and they left the store. "We need to stop by the bank, then we can grab lunch before heading back," he said as they walked down Main Street. Isabel tensed. "I'm not really hungry. I can wait in the truck. It's over 90 degrees today. I'm not leaving you in a hot truck." His tone brooked no argument. "The cafe across from the bank is quiet. We can sit in the back." The bank errand was quick, but as they exited, Isabel's worst fear materialized. A police car pulled up, and an officer stepped out. "Eli Dawson," the officer called with a friendly wave. "Just the man I wanted to see." Isabel froze, her breath catching in her throat. She lowered her head, keeping her face partially hidden by the hat brim. "Sheriff Collins," Eli greeted him. "What can I do for you?" "Got a quick question about that property line dispute with Old Man Jenkins." The sheriff noticed Isabel and, "Who's this Isabel Cruz?" Eli said. "She works on the farm." "Isabel, this is Sheriff Collins." The sheriff tipped his hat. "Miss Cruz, new to town?" Isabel managed a nod, trying to keep her voice steady. "Yes, just a few months. Well, welcome. Always nice to see new faces." He turned back to Eli. "Got a minute to go over those property maps?" "Of course." "Isabel, why don't you grab a table at the cafe? I'll join you in a few minutes." Grateful for the escape, Isabel hurried across the street. Inside the cafe, she chose a table in the back corner, facing the wall. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together to hide it. A waitress came for her order, but Isabel could only ask for water. The thought of food made her stomach turn. She kept glancing at the door, part of her wanting to flee, to run as far and as fast as she could. 15 minutes later, Eli joined her. He took one look at her face and frowned in concern. "You're white as a sheet," he said, sitting across from her. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just not feeling well." Eli didn't look convinced. "Is it the sheriff? Because if you're worried about I'm not," she interrupted quickly. "I just don't like crowds." 3 people isn't exactly a crowd. Isabel, his voice was gentle. "What's really going on?" She couldn't tell him, couldn't risk the questions, the judgment, the danger it might bring to him and Martha if the truth came out. "I made a mistake coming here," she said instead. "To the cafe, to Pine Hollow. I should go." The words hurt to say, but fear was winning over whatever fragile connection she'd begun to feel. Eli's expression shifted from concern to something harder to read. "Running again?" The question caught her off guard. "What, you came to Pine Hollow running from something now? At the first sign of whatever this is, you're ready to run again?" His voice remained calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes. "Does it ever solve anything?" Isabel felt a flash of anger. "You don't know anything about my situation." "You're right, I don't, because you won't tell me." He leaned forward slightly. "But I know what it's like to want to escape pain. After Sarah died, I thought about selling the farm, moving somewhere no one knew me or my story. Somewhere I wouldn't see her ghost around every corner." "Why didn't you?" Isabel asked, momentarily forgetting her own fear. "Because Martha told me something I needed to hear," she said. "You can change your location, but you can't outrun your heart." He held Isabel's gaze. "Whatever you're running from, Isabel, it's coming with you." The truth of his words struck deep. Isabel had fled across the country, changed her name, her appearance, her entire life. But the fear, the shame, the grief, they were still with her, as present as ever. "I thought silence would keep the pain from growing," she whispered, echoing the thoughts that had kept her isolated for so long. Eli's response was quiet, but clear. "Sometimes silence just gives it roots." The simple wisdom of his words broke something open inside her. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back, aware they were in a public place. "I can't talk about it," she said. "Not yet. I'm not asking you to." Eli's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. "I'm just asking you not to run. Not today, at least." The waitress returned, breaking the moment. Eli ordered sandwiches for both of them, and Isabel didn't object. The crisis had passed, but something fundamental had changed for the first time. Isabel was considering the possibility that running might not be her only option. The ride back to the farm was different. The silence was comfortable rather than tense. Isabel watched the countryside pass by, thinking about Eli's words and what they meant for her. As they turned onto the dirt road leading to Pine Hollow, Eli spoke. "There's something I want to show you, if you're willing." Curiosity overrode caution. "What is it?" "You'll see." He drove past the main house, following a narrower path that led toward a grove of willow trees in the distance. When the truck could go no further, he parked. "It's a short walk from here," he said, getting out. Isabel followed him along a well-worn path through tall grass. The willows grew closer, their long branches swaying in the gentle breeze. As they entered the grove, the air felt cooler, the light filtering through the canopy in dappled patterns. In the center of the grove was a small clearing, and in that clearing, a single headstone. Isabel stopped, suddenly understanding where they were. "Eli, you don't have to. I want to," he said quietly. He approached the grave and gestured for Isabel to join him. The headstone was simple but beautiful, made of polished granite. It read, "Sarah Elizabeth Dawson, beloved wife, 1989 to 2022. Love remains." Eli knelt and brushed away a few fallen leaves from the base of the stone. "I come here every week, sometimes to talk to her, sometimes just to sit." He looked up at Isabel. "For the first year, I couldn't talk about her with anyone. It hurt too much, but keeping all that grief inside nearly destroyed me." Isabel knelt beside him, moved by his willingness to share something so personal. "Martha finally dragged me to a grief support group in town," he continued. "I hated it at first, but slowly I started to see that talking about Sarah, remembering her out loud, kept her alive in a different way." He touched the headstone gently. "The pain doesn't go away, but it changes, becomes something you can carry without being crushed by it." Isabel's own pain felt heavy in her chest. "I don't know if I can do that." "You don't have to do it all at once," Eli said, "and you don't have to do it alone." They sat there in the peaceful grove, the willow branches creating a private world around them. Isabel thought about the secret she carried, the shame and fear that had driven her across the country. Could she ever speak it aloud? Would it help if she did? "She loved this spot," Eli said after a while. "We used to have picnics here before we built the house." She said the willows were like nature's curtains, giving us our own little stage. A sad smile crossed his face. She was a drama teacher at the high school, always seeing the world in terms of stories and stages. "She sounds wonderful," Isabel said softly. Eli stood up, offering Isabel his hand. "And talking about her, even when it hurts, honors who she was." Isabel took his hand, allowing him to help her up. The touch lingered, neither of them pulling away immediately. In that moment, standing among the willows beside Sarah's grave, Isabel felt a strange sense of peace, as if Sarah herself was somehow giving permission for this tentative connection between two wounded souls when they walked back to the truck. Eli didn't let go of her hand, and Isabel, for the first time in longer than she could remember, didn't pull away. August arrived with relentless heat and afternoon thunderstorms that left the air heavy with humidity. The garden required constant attention, but Isabel didn't mind. The work kept her grounded, focused on the present rather than the past or the uncertain future. Since the day at Sarah's grave, something had shifted between her and Eli. They still didn't speak much about their pasts, but they spoke about everything else: books they'd read, places they'd seen, simple dreams they held. Each morning, Eli would bring her coffee as she started work in the garden. Each evening, they would walk the perimeter of the farm together, checking fences and irrigation lines, their conversations flowing more easily with each passing day. Martha watched this development with quiet satisfaction but said nothing, though. Isabel often caught the older woman hiding a smile when Eli lingered in the kitchen during meal preparations. One particularly hot afternoon, Isabel was harvesting the first of the summer lavender when Eli approached, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. "You've been out here for hours," he said, offering her a glass. "Martha says you need to take a break before you collapse from heat stroke." Isabel accepted the tea gratefully, just trying to get this done before the storm hits. She nodded toward the dark clouds gathering on the horizon. "The lavender will still be here tomorrow." Eli sat on the wooden bench near the garden, patting the space beside him. "Come sit for a minute." Isabel hesitated, then joined him, careful to leave a small space between them. Despite their growing closeness, she still maintained certain boundaries, physical ones being the most important. Eli never pushed, never questioned her need for space, and she was grateful for his patience. "The farm looks different this year," Eli said, gazing out at the fields. "Better. Martha mentioned you had a rough season last year." Eli nodded. "Drought hit us hard. We lost almost half the corn crop. Then the well pump broke down right in the middle of the worst heat wave." He took a drink of his tea. "I wasn't in a good place personally either. Made some poor decisions." "What kind of decisions?" Isabel asked. "Almost sold the East Field to a developer." Eli's expression darkened at the memory. "Rachel brought me an offer that seemed too good to pass up. We needed the money for repairs, and I wasn't thinking clearly." "What stopped you?" "Martha," he said with a small smile. "She reminded me that this land has been in the Dawson family for 4 generations. Said Sarah would haunt us both if I sold an acre of it to build vacation homes." Isabel laughed softly. "Martha doesn't mince words." "No, she doesn't, and she was right." Eli turned to look at Isabel directly. "Sometimes we need someone to remind us of who we are when grief makes us forget." The comment hit close to home. Isabel had spent so long running and hiding that she sometimes wondered if she even remembered who she truly was beneath all the fear. A distant rumble of thunder broke the moment. The storm was approaching faster than expected. "We should get inside," Eli said, standing. "This looks like it might be a bad one." Isabel gathered her harvesting tools while Eli collected the baskets of lavender. They had just reached the porch when the first heavy drops began to fall. Within seconds, the rain was coming down in sheets, drumming on the roof and streaming from the gutters. "Just in time," Eli said, holding the door open for Isabel. Inside, Martha was putting the finishing touches on a large pot of stew. "Good, you got her to take a break," she said to Eli. "That girl works harder than both of us combined." "The garden keeps me busy," Isabel said, setting her tools on the mud porch to clean later. "Too busy, if you ask me." Martha wiped her hands on her apron, "which is why I've decided we're all taking the day off tomorrow." "What?" Eli and Isabel spoke in unison. "You heard me. Tomorrow is the summer festival in town. We're going, all 3 of us." Martha's tone made it clear this wasn't up for debate. "The farm won't fall apart if we take one day to enjoy ourselves." Isabel felt a flutter of anxiety. "I don't think I'm not asking, dear. I'm telling." Martha smiled to soften her words. "You've been here nearly 3 months and have barely left the property. People are starting to talk." "What people?" Eli asked, frowning. "Rachel, for one. She stopped by the market last Saturday asking all sorts of questions about Isabel." Martha shook her head disapprovingly. "I told her to mind her own business, of course, but the best way to stop gossip is to be seen. Let folks get used to you." Isabel knew Martha was right, but the thought of spending a day in town, surrounded by strangers who might ask questions, made her stomach knot with fear. Eli must have sensed her discomfort. "We don't have to stay long," he said quietly. "Just enough to make Martha happy." "Exactly," Martha agreed. "Now, let's eat before the stew gets cold." As they sat down to dinner, the storm intensified outside, wind howling around the old farmhouse, but inside was warm and safe. And despite her anxiety about tomorrow, Isabel couldn't help feeling grateful for this unlikely sanctuary she had found. The summer festival transformed the small town. Main Street was closed to traffic, with booths lining both sides selling crafts, food, and local produce. A stage had been set up in the town square where a band played country music. Children ran around with painted faces, and the air smelled of barbecue and cotton candy. Isabel felt exposed, despite her wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses. She stayed close to Martha and Eli as they made their way through the crowded street. "The herb booth is over there," Martha said, pointing toward the farmer's market section. "I told Gladys we'd bring some of our lavender products." They had spent the morning packaging dried lavender and small bottles of the lavender oil Isabel had been experimenting with. The fragrant bundles looked beautiful, tied with purple ribbon and arranged in wicker baskets. At the booth, Gladys, an older woman, with bright eyes and a ready smile, greeted them warmly. "Martha, you made it. And these must be your famous lavender products I've been hearing about." "All Isabel's work," Martha said proudly. "She has a way with herbs that's nothing short of magical." Isabel blushed at the praise. "It's just careful attention, that's all." "Well, they're beautiful," Gladys said, making space on her table. "These will sell out before noon, mark my words." As Martha and Gladys caught up, Eli touched Isabel's elbow gently. "Want to walk around a bit? I can show you the less crowded areas." Grateful for the suggestion, Isabel nodded. They slipped away, Eli guiding her toward a quieter section of the festival where local artists displayed their work. "You're doing great," he said as they paused to look at a display of handmade pottery. "I know this isn't easy for you." "Is it that obvious?" she asked. "Only to me." His voice was soft, meant only for her ears. "I recognized the look of someone scanning for exits. I had it myself the first time I went out after Sarah died." Isabel relaxed slightly, touched by his understanding. "Thank you for making this easier." They continued walking, stopping occasionally to admire a painting or watch a demonstration. Eli kept them away from the most crowded areas, and Isabel gradually felt her anxiety easing until she heard a familiar voice calling Eli's name. Rachel approached, dressed in a fashionable sundress and heels that seemed impractical for the dusty festival grounds. She was accompanied by a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 50s. "Eli, I've been looking everywhere for you," Rachel said, her smile wide but her eyes quickly taking in his proximity to Isabel. "I want you to meet someone. This is James Mercer, the developer I told you about. He's still very interested in that Eastfield." "Rachel, we've discussed this," Eli said, his voice taking on an edge Isabel hadn't heard before. "The farm isn't for sale, not in pieces, not as a whole." "It never hurts to talk," James Mercer said smoothly, extending his hand. "I have some new proposals that might interest you." Eli reluctantly shook the man's hand but didn't soften his stance. "Today's not the day for business, Mr. Mercer. I'm here to enjoy the festival with my family." Rachel's eyes narrowed at the word family, her gaze shifting to Isabel, of course. "How rude of me to interrupt your outing." Isabel felt herself, if shrinking under Rachel's scrutiny. She took a small step back, bumping into someone behind her. "Excuse me," she murmured, turning to apologize. The man she had bumped into was studying her face with uncomfortable intensity. "Do I know you?" he asked. "You look familiar." Isabel's heart raced. "No, I don't think so. I'm not from around here. Could have sworn." The man continued to stare, then shrugged. "My mistake." Eli placed a protective hand on the small of Isabel's back. "We should find Martha," he said, guiding her away from the group. "Who was that?" Isabel whispered once they were out of earshot. "Tom Blake. He's a truck driver, makes deliveries all over the state." Eli glanced back, frowning. "Did you recognize him?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly, Eli's hand remained on her back, a gentle pressure that was both reassuring and frightening in its intimacy. "Isabel, if you're in some kind of trouble, I'm not," she interrupted. "I just... I don't like strangers staring at me." He studied her face for a moment, clearly not believing her but not pushing further. "Let's get some lemonade and find a place to sit." They found a quiet spot under a large oak tree at the edge of the festival grounds. Isabel sipped her lemonade, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Had Tom Blake really recognized her, or was it just her paranoia? Should she leave Pine Hollow before she brought trouble to Eli and Martha's door? "You're thinking about running again," Eli said, breaking into her thoughts. She looked at him in surprise. "How did you know?" "Your eyes get distant, and you start fidgeting with your sleeves." He nodded toward her hands, which were indeed tugging at her long sleeves despite the summer heat. "Whatever you're afraid of, Isabel, running won't solve it. Sometimes running is the only option," she said quietly. "Is it?" Eli's gaze was steady. "Or is it just the easiest one in the moment?" Before she could respond, Martha appeared, looking flushed with excitement. "There you are. You won't believe it. All the lavender products sold out in an hour. Gladys wants us to bring twice as much next week." She sat down heavily on the bench beside them. "And the lavender oil was such a hit that the owner of that fancy new spa in Millfield wants to place a regular order." Despite her anxiety, Isabel felt a surge of pride. "Really?" "Absolutely. She gave me her card." Martha fanned herself with a festival program. "Lord, it's hot today. I'm about ready to head back to the farm, unless you two want to stay longer." "I think we've had enough festival for one day," Eli said, catching Isabel's eye with understanding that as they walked back to the truck. Isabel noticed Tom Blake watching them from across the street. A chill ran through her despite the heat. It was time to be more careful than ever. That night, Isabel couldn't sleep. The encounter with Tom Blake had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. If he recognized her, others might too. The fragile sense of security she had built at Pine Hollow felt suddenly tenuous. She slipped out of bed and padded quietly to the kitchen for a glass of water. Through the window, she could see the garden silvered by moonlight. Her sanctuary. Can't sleep, Isabel jumped at the voice. Eli sat at the kitchen table, a mug of tea in front of him. I didn't see you there, she said, one hand pressed to her racing heart. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. He pushed out a chair with his foot. Join me. Isabel hesitated, then sat down. Eli rose to pour her a mug of tea from the pot on the stove, setting it in front of her before returning to his seat. Chamomile, he said. Martha's cure for everything from insomnia to heartbreak. Asterisk, asterisk, does it work? Isabel asked, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. Asterisk, asterisk, sometimes. He studied her over the rim of his own mug. What's keeping you up tonight? Tom Blake. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel tensed. Why would you think that? Asterisk, asterisk, because you've been looking over your shoulder ever since we ran into him. Eli's voice was gentle but direct. And because I saw him watching you as we left, like he was trying to place you. Asterisk, asterisk, she stared into her tea, unable to meet his eyes. It's nothing. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel. Just her name, but the way he said it with such care and concern almost broke her resolve. Asterisk, asterisk, please. Eli, don't ask questions I can't answer. Asterisk, asterisk, he was silent for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he changed the subject. I've been thinking about expanding the herb garden. The lavender products were such a success today, it makes sense to scale up. Maybe add some new varieties. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel looked up, grateful for his understanding. That would be wonderful. There's a section behind the current garden that gets good morning sun. It would be perfect for more delicate herbs. Asterisk, asterisk, they spent the next hour talking about garden plans, plant varieties, and potential products they could develop. The normalcy of the conversation soothed Isabel's frayed nerves, and she found herself relaxing, even smiling at Eli's idea for lavender-infused honey from the farm's beehives. Asterisk, asterisk, you have a beautiful smile, Eli said suddenly. You should use it more often. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel felt her cheeks warm. I smile. Asterisk, asterisk, not enough. His eyes held hers. And rarely with your whole heart. Asterisk, asterisk, the observation was so accurate it stole her breath. When was the last time she had smiled without reservation, without fear lurking at the edges? Before the nightmare began, certainly. Before the hospital. Before the loss. Asterisk, asterisk, I used to, she admitted softly. Before asterisk, asterisk, before what? He asked, his voice equally soft. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel looked down at her hands, at the faint scar on her wrist that her sleeves usually covered. The secret pressed against her chest, demanding release. Here in the quiet kitchen, with moonlight streaming through the windows and Eli's patient presence across from her, the urge to unburden herself was almost overwhelming. Asterisk, asterisk, I was engaged, she said finally, the words barely audible. His name was Michael. Eli remained silent, allowing her to continue at her own pace. He was charming, everyone loved him. My parents, my sister, our friends. Isabel traced the rim of her mug with one finger. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world when he proposed. Asterisk, asterisk, what happened? Eli asked when she fell silent. Asterisk, asterisk, I didn't see it at first. The control, the jealousy. He said it was because he loved me so much. She gave a bitter laugh. I believed him, even when he started checking my phone, questioning where I'd been, who I'd talked to. Even when he began to isolate me from my friends, I made excuses for him. Asterisk, asterisk, Eli's hands clenched on the table, but his voice remained calm. When did it get physical? Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel's eyes shot to his, surprised by his perception. After we moved in together. Small things at first, a hard grip on my arm, a push during an argument. Then she swallowed hard. It got worse, much worse. Asterisk, asterisk, did you tell anyone? Asterisk, asterisk, I was too ashamed, too afraid. Isabel wrapped her arms around herself. And he was always so sorry afterward. He would cry, promise to change, treat me like a queen for weeks, until the next time. Asterisk, asterisk, how did you get away? Eli's voice was strained, as if he was working hard to keep his anger in check. Asterisk, asterisk, I found out I was pregnant. Asterisk, asterisk, the admission hung in the air between them. Isabel hadn't spoken these words aloud to anyone except her sister. Asterisk, asterisk, I was happy, she continued, her voice breaking slightly. Despite everything, I thought a baby might change things, make us a real family. Asterisk, asterisk, Eli reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. What did he do? Asterisk, asterisk, he was furious, said I'd trapped him, that I'd done it on purpose. The memories flooded back, the rage in Michael's eyes, the accusations, the explosion of violence that followed. He He hurt me badly that night. I lost consciousness. When I woke up I was in the hospital, and her voice failed her. Asterisk, asterisk, and you'd lost the baby. Eli finished gently. Asterisk, asterisk. Isabel nodded, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. I told the doctors I fell down the stairs. They didn't believe me, but I was too scared to tell the truth. She wiped at her tears with trembling hands. My sister Maria came to the hospital. She brought me clothes, money, and a bus ticket. Told me to run as far as I could and not look back. Asterisk, asterisk, and he's been looking for you since then. Asterisk, asterisk, yes. Maria says he's obsessed with finding me. Claims he has rights as my fiancé. Isabel's voice hardened. He almost killed me. He did kill our child. What rights could he possibly have? Asterisk, asterisk, none, Eli said firmly. Absolutely none. Asterisk, asterisk. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession settling between them. Isabel felt both lighter and more vulnerable, having finally shared her darkest secret. Asterisk, asterisk, is Cruz your real name? Eli asked, finally. Asterisk, asterisk, no. It was my mother's maiden name. Isabel is real though. She gave him a sad smile. I wanted to keep that part of myself at least. Asterisk, asterisk, Eli nodded, understanding. And Tom Blake? Did he really recognize you? Asterisk, asterisk, I don't know. Michael knows a lot of people through his construction business. Truck drivers, suppliers. It's possible Tom delivered to one of his sites, saw me there. She shuddered at the thought. If he remembers where he knows me from. Asterisk, asterisk, he won't get to you, Eli said, his voice low and fierce. I promise you that, Isabel. Asterisk, asterisk, the protectiveness in his tone both warmed and frightened her. I don't want to bring trouble to you and Martha. Maybe I should asterisk, asterisk, don't. Eli finally reached for a hand, covering it with his own. Don't say you should leave. This is your home now. We'll figure this out together. Asterisk, asterisk, home, the word resonated in her chest. How long had it been since she had felt at home anywhere? Asterisk, asterisk, thank you, she whispered, turning her hand to clasp his. For listening, for not judging. Asterisk, asterisk, there's nothing to judge. You survived, Isabel. You're the strongest person I know. His thumb brushed over her knuckles gently. You're not alone anymore. Asterisk, asterisk, the touch of his hand was warm and reassuring, so different from the last man who had claimed to love her. With Michael, every touch had eventually become a means of control. With Eli, it felt like freedom. Asterisk, asterisk, they sat there in the moonlit kitchen, hands joined across the table, neither speaking but communicating volumes in their silence. For the first time since she'd fled her old life, Isabel allowed herself to imagine a future beyond mere survival, a future that included the quiet man across from her, whose strength lay not in domination but in understanding. Asterisk, asterisk, outside a nightbird called into the darkness. Inside, two broken hearts began to mend. Asterisk, 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 the next morning brought clear skies and a sense of lightness. Isabel hadn't felt in months. She had shared her darkest secret, and Eli hadn't turned away. Instead, he had offered protection, understanding, and the promise that she wasn't alone. Asterisk, asterisk, she was in the garden early, sorting through the herbs they would take to the weekend market. The lavender was particularly vibrant this year, and Isabel found herself humming as she worked, a habit she had lost during the dark days with Michael. Asterisk, asterisk, Martha joined her, carrying a basket of freshly baked muffins. Breakfast in the garden today, she announced. Eli's bringing coffee. Asterisk, asterisk, as if summoned by his name. Eli appeared with a thermos and mugs. He gave Isabel a small smile, a private acknowledgement of their midnight conversation. Asterisk, asterisk, they sat on the garden bench, enjoying the morning sun and Martha's blueberry muffins. It felt like a perfect moment, simple, peaceful, shared with people who cared about her. Asterisk, asterisk, I've been thinking, Martha said, breaking the comfortable silence. The lavender products have been such a success, we should consider expanding, maybe even open a small shop on the property. Asterisk, asterisk, a shop. Eli looked surprised. Asterisk, asterisk, nothing fancy. Just convert that old storage shed by the driveway, clean it up, put in some shelves. We could sell Isabel's herbs, my jams, maybe some of those beeswax candles you used to make. Eli. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel turned to him. You make candles. Asterisk, asterisk, used to, he said, looking slightly embarrassed. It was a hobby Sarah and I shared. Asterisk, asterisk, he's being modest, Martha told Isabel. Their candles won first prize at the county fair 3 years running. People still ask about them. Asterisk, asterisk, I haven't made any since. Eli trailed off. Asterisk, asterisk, since Sarah died, Martha finished gently, but maybe it's time to start again. Isabel's herb oils would make beautiful scented candles. Asterisk, asterisk, Isabel watched the emotions play across Eli's face, hesitation, pain, and finally, a cautious openness to the idea. I'd like to learn, she said. If you're willing to teach me. Asterisk, asterisk, Eli met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her heart skip. I'd like that, he said. Asterisk, asterisk, Martha looked between them, a knowing smile on her lips. Well, that's settled then. I'll start clearing out that shed this week. Asterisk, asterisk, the sound of a vehicle coming up the driveway interrupted their planning. A police cruiser pulled up near the house, and Sheriff Collins stepped out. Isabel tensed immediately, her hand finding Eli's arm in a reflexive gesture of fear. "It's okay," he murmured. "Stay here with Martha. I'll see what he wants." Eli walked over to meet the sheriff, his body language casual but alert. Isabel couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw the sheriff hand Eli what looked like a flyer. They spoke for a few minutes, then shook hands, and the sheriff returned to his vehicle. When Eli came back, his expression was carefully neutral, but Isabel could see tension in the set of his shoulders. "What did he want?" Martha asked. "Just passing out flyers about a string of break-ins at farms in the county," Eli said, but his eyes flicked to Isabel. "Nothing to worry about." Isabel knew he wasn't telling the whole truth. Her stomach knotted with anxiety, but she said nothing, until Martha had gone back to the house. "What is it really?" she asked once they were alone. Eli hesitated, then handed her the flyer. It wasn't about break-ins. It was a missing person bulletin with her face, her real face, before she'd cut and dyed her hair, staring back at her. The name listed was her real name, Abigail Shaw. The contact information belonged to Michael Anderson, described as her concerned fiancé's here, Isabel whispered, fear clutching at her throat. "In the county, looking for me. The sheriff doesn't suspect anything," Eli said quickly. "He's just doing his job, passing out these flyers. I told him we hadn't seen anyone matching the description, but Tom Blake, if he remembers where he knows me from." Isabel's hands shook as she held the flyer. "We'll deal with that if it happens." Eli took the flyer and tore it into small pieces. "But you need to know your options, Isabel. You could go to the police, tell them the truth about Michael." "With what proof?" she asked bitterly. "It's my word against his, and he's so charming, so convincing. No one ever believes he could be violent." "I believe you." Eli's voice was firm. "And there would be hospital records from when you lost the baby. Records that show I claimed I fell downstairs." Isabel shook her head. "I was too afraid to tell the truth then, and now I've been running for months, using a false name. It makes me look guilty, not him." Eli couldn't argue with that logic. "Then we keep you safe here. Pine Hollow is remote. Most people in town barely know you're here. We can be more careful, limit your trips into town. And if he finds me anyway," the fear in her voice was palpable, "he'd have to go through me first." Eli's expression hardened. "And I promise you, Isabel, that won't be easy for him." The protectiveness in his voice both comforted and concerned her. "I don't want you getting hurt because of me, and I don't want you living in fear anymore." Eli stepped closer, gently taking her hands in his. "We'll figure this out together, one day at a time." Isabel looked up at him, at the determination in his eyes, and felt something she hadn't experienced in a very long time. Hope, not just for survival, but for a life worth living. "One day at a time," she agreed softly. Eli squeezed her hands gently, then released them. "Come on, we've got a garden to tend and a shop to plan. Life goes on, Isabel, even when we're afraid." As they returned to their work, Isabel glanced over her shoulder at the road leading to Pine Hollow Farm. Michael was out there somewhere, searching for her. The thought chilled her to the bone. But for the first time, she wasn't facing that fear. Alone, she had Eli, Martha, and this place that had begun to feel like home. Whatever came next, she would face it with them by her side. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange mix of normalcy and tension. On the surface, life at Pine Hollow Farm continued as usual. Isabel tended her garden, Martha cooked and preserved the summer harvest, and Eli worked the fields. They even began clearing out the old storage shed, preparing it for its new life as a farm shop. But beneath this routine lay a constant vigilance. Isabel no longer went into town alone. Eli installed new locks on all the doors and added security lights around the property. The carefree summer days had acquired a sharp edge of caution. Despite the threat hanging over them, Isabel and Eli grew closer. Their midnight conversations became a ritual, sharing bits of their pasts over cups of chamomile tea. Isabel learned about Eli's childhood on the farm, his marriage to Sarah, their dreams of filling the old house with children. He listened as she spoke of her parents, her college years studying botany, her close relationship with her sister Maria. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance above the fields, Eli reached for her hand. The simple gesture no longer frightened her. Instead, it felt like an anchor in the storm of uncertainty. "Martha's talking about extending your position through the winter," he said. "She thinks you should develop a line of herb-based soaps and lotions for the shop." Isabel smiled. "She's full of ideas lately. She's happy. The farm feels alive again." Eli's thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. "Because of you, I think that's giving me too much credit." "I'm not." His eyes held hers. "You brought something back to this place, Isabel, to Martha, to me." The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. In it, she saw something that both thrilled and terrified her, not just affection or desire, but deeper feelings she wasn't sure she was ready to name. "Eli," she hesitated, unsure what to say. "You don't have to say anything," he assured her. "I just wanted you to know." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching night settle over the farm. For a moment, Isabel allowed herself to imagine a future here, changing her name legally to Isabel Cruz, building the herb shop with Eli, becoming a permanent part of Pine Hollow Farm. But the missing person flyer with her face on it remained, a stark reminder that her past wasn't done with her yet. The next morning brought rain, a gentle, steady shower that the fields desperately needed after weeks of heat. Isabel worked in the greenhouse, transplanting herb seedlings for the fall garden. Martha bustled in, shaking water from her umbrella. Eli's gone into town for supplies, she announced. And I've got a dentist appointment. Will you be all right? Here alone for a few hours. Isabel nodded, though anxiety flickered in her chest. I'll be fine. I'll stay inside with the doors locked. Martha patted her shoulder. That's my girl. Don't worry too much. This place is miles from anywhere, and nobody knows you're here. After Martha left, Isabel focused on her work, letting the rhythmic task of planting calm her nerves. The rain drummed on the greenhouse roof, creating a peaceful cocoon that almost made her forget her fears. The sound of a vehicle pulling up the driveway startled her. Peering through the rain-streaked glass, she expected to see Eli's truck returning early. Instead, an unfamiliar car was parking near the house. Isabel's heart began to race. She moved to the back of the greenhouse, out of sight, and watched as Rachel emerged from the car, hurrying through the rain toward the house with a folder clutched to her chest. Relief washed over her. Just Rachel, probably with more property documents for Eli to reject. Isabel debated whether to make her presence known or wait for Rachel to leave when she couldn't find anyone home. Before she could decide, a second vehicle pulled up, a black pickup truck she didn't recognize. A man stepped out, and even through the rain, Isabel knew immediately who it was. Michael. Her blood turned to ice. She shrank back further into the shadows of the greenhouse, watching in horror as Michael approached Rachel. They spoke briefly, Rachel pointing toward the house, then the barn, clearly indicating she was looking for someone too. Isabel's mind raced. How had he found her? Had Rachel somehow discovered her identity? Or was it just terrible coincidence that brought them both to Pine Hollow today? She needed to hide, to run, but where? The greenhouse offered no real concealment. If they decided to search the property. Her phone, it was in her pocket. She could call Eli, warn him. With shaking hands, she pulled it out and dialed, turning the volume down so it wouldn't be heard. Isabel. Eli answered on the second ring. Everything okay? No, she whispered, watching as Rachel and Michael walked toward the house. Michael is here, at the farm, with Rachel. What? Eli's voice sharpened. Are you safe? Where are you? In the greenhouse. They don't know I'm here yet, but they're checking the house. Listen to me, Eli said, his voice tense but steady. Get to the old root cellar behind the barn. The entrance is hidden by those blackberry bushes. The key is under the third stone from the left. Lock yourself in. I'm on my way. 10 minutes, max. Eli, he's dangerous. So am I when someone threatens my family. The fierce protectiveness in his voice gave her courage. Go now. Isabel, stay on the phone with me. Isabel crept to the greenhouse door, peering out. Rachel and Michael had entered the house. This was her chance. Keeping low, she dashed through the rain toward the barn, skirting along its outer wall, until she reached the blackberry bushes Eli had mentioned. The cellar entrance was well hidden, just as he'd said. She found the key, unlocked the heavy wooden door, and slipped inside, pulling it closed behind her. The space was dark and smelled of earth and old potatoes, but it felt secure. I'm in, she whispered into the phone. Good, I'm almost there. The sound of his truck engine revving came through the line. Did Rachel seem to know him? I think so. They were talking like. The realization hit her. Eli. I think she brought him here. She must have recognized me somehow. Eli swore under his breath. Rachel's been acting strange ever since you arrived. Too many questions. I should have seen this coming. What if they find me before you get here? Fear made Isabel's voice shake. They won't. That cellar door hasn't been opened in years. No one except Martha and I even remember it exists. His voice softened slightly. Just stay quiet. I'm turning onto the farm road now. Isabel huddled in the darkness, listening to the distant sounds of doors opening and closing as Michael and Rachel searched the property. Footsteps passed near the cellar at one point, and she held her breath. But they moved on. Then she heard Eli's truck, the familiar rumble of its engine cutting through the rain. Car doors slammed, voices raised. She couldn't make out the words, but one voice was definitely Eli's, and another was Michael's. Stay where you are, Eli said through the phone. No matter what you hear. The line went dead. Isabel pressed her ear to the cellar door, straining to hear what was happening. The voices grew louder, angrier. Then a woman screamed. Rachel, she thought. Unable to bear not knowing, Isabel cracked the cellar door open just enough to see through a narrow gap between the blackberry bushes. The scene before her made her heart stop. Michael stood in the yard, rain plastering his expensive shirt too. His body, his face contorted with the rage she knew all too well. Eli faced him, standing tall and unintimidated. Rachel was off to the side, looking horrified, as if whatever was happening had gone far beyond what she'd expected. I know she's here, Michael was saying, his voice carrying even through the rain. Her car was spotted in town. Someone recognized her at that festival. There's no one here by that name, Eli replied calmly, and you're trespassing on private property. Don't play games with me, Michael snarled. I've spent months tracking her down. That truck driver confirmed it. She's here, working on this pathetic farm. If you're looking for your fiancée, Eli said, his voice hardening, maybe you should ask yourself why she ran from you in the first place. Michael's face darkened. She's a liar, unstable. She needs help, professional help. The only thing Isabel needs, Eli said deliberately, is for you to leave her alone, for good. At the sound of her name, her chosen name, not the one Michael knew, confusion flashed across Michael's face. Then understanding Isabel. Is that what she's calling herself now? He laughed, an ugly sound. She told you some story, didn't she? Made me out to be the villain. She told me the truth. Eli took a step forward. About the control, the violence, the baby she lost because of you. Michael's expression changed, his eyes going cold. She lost that baby because she's careless. Fell down the stairs, asked the hospital. We both know that's not what happened. Eli's voice was dangerously quiet. Now get off my property before I call the sheriff. The sheriff. Michael laughed again. I filed a missing person report. The law's on my side. She's mentally unstable, ran away during a difficult time. I have documentation from a therapist you chose, I'm guessing, who probably never spoke to Isabel alone. Michael's facade of concern slipped, revealing the anger beneath. This isn't your business. She's my fiancée. Not anymore. Eli stood his ground. She has a new life now, without you. Something in his tone must have revealed more than he intended, because Michael's eyes narrowed. So that's it. You think she's yours now? He shook his head. You have no idea what you're getting into. She'll run from you too, when things get tough. It's what she does. No, Eli said firmly. She ran from abuse. There's a difference, Eli. Rachel finally spoke, her voice shaking. Maybe we should call the sheriff, let him sort this out. That's a good idea, Rachel. Eli didn't take his eyes off Michael. Why don't you call him right now? Tell him we have a trespasser who's wanted for domestic violence in New Mexico. Michael's expression changed, caution replacing anger. There are no charges against me. Not yet. Eli agreed, but Isabel could change that. Her sister has kept the hospital records. And I'm betting you left marks that night. Marks a doctor would have documented, even if Isabel was too afraid to tell the truth then. Uncertainty flickered in Michael's eyes. Then his hand moved to his waistband, and Isabel saw the glint of metal. A gun, Eli, she screamed, bursting from her hiding place. He has a gun. Everything happened at once. Michael whirled toward her voice, the weapon now visible in his hand. Eli lunged forward, tackling him to the muddy ground. Rachel screamed again, fumbling for her phone, and Isabel ran toward them, fear for Eli overriding her terror of Michael. The two men struggled in the mud, fighting for control of the gun. Isabel hovered helplessly, looking for a way to help. She grabbed a shovel leaning against the barn, ready to swing if Michael got the upper hand. A deafening crack split the air. The gunshot froze everyone for a heartbeat. Eli rolled away from Michael, who lay still in the mud, the gun no longer in his hand. For one terrible moment, Isabel thought Eli had been shot. Then he stood up, muddy, but unharmed, and kicked the gun further away from Michael's reach. You okay? He asked her, his voice rough with adrenaline. She nodded, unable to speak, her eyes fixed on Michael. He was clutching his thigh, blood seeping between his fingers, his face contorted in pain. The gun went off during the struggle, Eli explained. Hit him in the leg. Rachel was on her phone, her voice high and panicked. We need an ambulance at Pine Hollow Farm. And the sheriff? There's been a shooting. Eli moved to Isabel's side, placing himself between her and Michael. It's over, he said softly. He can't hurt you anymore. Isabel looked at Michael, the man who had once claimed to love her, now lying wounded and defeated in the mud. She felt no satisfaction in his pain, only a profound relief that the nightmare might finally be ending. Why did you bring him here? She asked Rachel, who was still clutching her phone like a lifeline. Rachel's face crumpled. I didn't know who he really was. He came to my office, asking if I knew of any new women in town matching your description, said he was a private investigator working for a concerned family. She looked down, ashamed. I was jealous of the way Eli looked at you. I thought if I could find out who you really were, why you were hiding. You had no right, Eli said, his voice hard. You put Isabel in danger. I'm sorry, Rachel whispered. I never thought he would. I didn't know. In the distance, sirens wailed. Help was coming. Isabel leaned against Eli, suddenly exhausted. The rain had soaked them both to the skin, but she barely noticed. All she could feel was the solid strength of him beside her, keeping her safe as he'd promised. What happens now? She asked, as the sirens grew closer. Now you tell your story, Eli said. The whole truth, to the sheriff, to anyone who needs to hear it. He brushed wet hair from her face with gentle fingers. No more running, Isabel, no more hiding. The hours that followed passed in a blur. The ambulance took Michael away, a sheriff's deputy accompanying him. Sheriff Collins took statements from everyone, his face grave as Isabel finally told the true story of why she had fled New Mexico and hidden at Pine Hollow Farm. "I'll need to verify your identity," he told her, "and there will be legal issues to sort out. But given the circumstances and the fact that he brought a weapon onto private property, I don't think you need to worry about any charges for using a false name." "What about Michael?" she asked, clutching the mug of tea Martha had pressed into her hands after returning home to the chaos. "He'll face weapons charges at minimum," the sheriff said. "As for the domestic violence allegations, that would be up to authorities in New Mexico. But your testimony today, plus any evidence your sister has kept, would be a start." After the sheriff left, promising to return the next day for more questions, the farmhouse fell into exhausted silence. Martha had gone to lie down, the excitement too much for her. Rachel had left with the deputies. Still shaken and apologetic. Eli and Isabel sat at the kitchen table, mugs of cooling tea between them. The rain had finally stopped, and rays of late afternoon sun slanted through the window. "I should call Maria," Isabel said. "Let her know what happened." "Use my office," Eli offered. "You can have privacy there." The call to her sister was emotional. Maria cried when Isabel told her about the confrontation, then grew determined when discussing the possibility of pressing charges against Michael. "I kept everything," Maria assured her. "The hospital records, photos of your injuries that I took when you were sleeping, the threatening messages he sent after you left. We can fight him now, Abby, together." The use of her real name jarred Isabel after so many months of being someone else. "I don't know if I'm Abby anymore," she admitted. "I've been Isabel for so long now." "Then be Isabel," Maria said simply. "What matters is that you're safe, and that you're not alone." When Isabel emerged from Eli's office, she found him on the porch, watching the sunset paint the rain-washed fields in gold. She sat beside him on the swing, their shoulders touching. "Maria wants me to come back to testify," she said, "to press charges." Eli nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "When would you go? Next week, maybe. Once the sheriff here sorts out the immediate issues." She hesitated. "I might need to stay there for a while, for the legal proceedings, I understand." His voice was carefully neutral, but she could feel the tension in his body. "Eli," she turned to face him. "I'm coming back." He looked at her. Then, hope warring with caution in his eyes. "Are you sure? Your life is there. Your family. My life is here now." She reached for his hand with the garden with Martha. She took a deep breath. "With you if you want me to stay." The caution in his eyes melted away, replaced by something that made her heart race. "I want you to stay more than I've wanted anything in a very long time," he said. "But only if it's what you truly want, not out of gratitude or obligation." "It's neither of those things." Isabel moved closer to him. "It's because when I'm with you I feel safe. Not just physically safe, but safe to be myself, to hope again, to maybe even love again someday." Eli's hand came up to cup her cheek. His touch fed the light. "I can wait for someday," he said softly. "However long it takes." Isabel leaned into his touch, no longer afraid. "It might not take as long as you think." When his lips met hers, it was gentle, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. But Isabel didn't want to pull away. For the first time and longer than she could remember, she wanted to move forward into this kiss, into this man's arms, into a future that suddenly seemed full of possibility rather than fear. The kiss deepened, and Isabel felt something breaking free inside her, the last chains of her past releasing their hold. When they finally parted, she was smiling, really smiling, with her whole heart. "Welcome home, Isabel," Eli whispered against her lips. 3 months later, Isabel stood in the newly opened Pine Hollow farm shop, arranging jars of lavender honey on a rustic wooden shelf. The small building had been transformed from a forgotten storage shed into a charming space filled with the farm's bounty herb bundles hanging from the rafters, Martha's preserves lining the walls, and in the center display Eli's beeswax candles, infused with Isabel's herb oils. The bell over the door jingled, and Isabel looked up to see Maria enter, her face lighting up as she took in the shop. "This is amazing," Maria said, embracing her sister. "When you described it in your letters, I couldn't picture it, but it's perfect." "Just in time for the holiday season," Isabel said proudly. "We've already had orders from 3 towns over." After the confrontation with Michael, everything had changed. Isabel had returned to New Mexico with Eli by her side, facing her past with newfound courage. Michael had been charged with assault, illegal possession of a firearm across state lines, and trespassing. With Maria's carefully preserved evidence and Isabel's testimony, the domestic violence charges had followed. The legal proceedings weren't over yet, but Michael was behind bars, denied bail as a flight risk. Isabel had reclaimed her identity, legally changing her name to Isabel Abigail Cruz, honoring both who she had been and who she had become. "How long can you stay?" Isabel asked, as she showed Maria around the shop. "Just until Sunday. School starts back on Monday." Maria picked up one of the candles, inhaling its soothing scent. "But I'll be back for Christmas. I can't wait to meet Martha's famous pecan pie. She's been planning the menu for weeks." Isabel laughed. "And Eli's been clearing out the guest room. He's hanging new curtains today." Maria's eyes softened. "Keep really loves you. You know, I saw it the moment you introduced us. The way he looks at you. Isabel felt a warm glow in her chest. I know, and I love him too. The words no longer frightened her. It's different this time. Real. They walked back to the farmhouse together, arms linked. The autumn air was crisp, the trees blazing with color. In the distance, Eli was visible on a ladder, fixing a loose shutter on the upper floor. Are you happy, sis? Maria asked, studying her face. Isabel looked around at the farm that had saved her, at the garden where she had begun to heal, at Martha waving from the porch, at Eli who had shown her that love could be kind and patient and true. Happier than I ever thought I could be, she answered honestly. That evening, after dinner and stories and laughter with Maria and Martha, Isabel and Eli slipped away for their nightly walk around the property. The stars were brilliant overhead, the air scented with fallen leaves and wood smoke. They paused beneath the old oak tree where Eli had first found her crying all those months ago, the same tree where she had stood with her suitcase, ready to flee when fear threatened to overwhelm her. Remember what you said to me that night? She asked, looking up at the branches silhouetted against the starry sky. Trust me, my heart has been hurt too, Eli quoted softly. Isabel turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. I do trust you, with everything I am. Eli's eyes shone in the moonlight. And I trust you with all that I am. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. Which is why I wanted to give you this. He held out a small wooden box, hand-carved with delicate lavender sprigs. Isabel's breath caught as she opened it. Inside was a simple ring with a moonstone set in silver. It's not a diamond, Eli said, suddenly nervous. I know it's too soon for that. But I wanted you to have something that symbolizes new beginnings. Moonstone is supposed to represent fresh starts and hope for the future. Like the moon that night when you first shared your story with me. Tears filled Isabel's eyes, not tears of fear or sorrow, but of overwhelming joy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. A promise, Eli explained, that whenever you're ready, whether that's a year from now or 5 years from now, I'll be here, loving you, supporting you, building a life with you. Isabel took the ring from its box, slipping it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, the moonstone, catching the starlight. What if I don't want to wait? She asked. What if I'm ready now? Eli's eyes widened. Are you sure? In answer, Isabel rose on her tiptoes and kissed him, pouring all her love and certainty into the gesture. When they parted, she whispered against his lips, no more secrets, just the life we build from them. Eli smiled, recognizing his own words from months ago. No more secrets, he agreed, drawing her close. Just us. Just this, under the oak tree with its sheltering branches. Beneath a sky filled with stars that had witnessed both their pain and their healing, Isabel and Eli embraced their future, not perfect, but whole. And in the soil of Pinehall Farm, love took root, stronger and more enduring than the pain that had brought them together. A love that would weather all seasons, nurtured by honesty, strengthened by trust, and blooming more beautifully with each passing day.